Hey, you. I was thinking about you and I want to ask you something honestly. Have you ever been described as easy to work with, low maintenance, so flexible? And at first, you're thinking, that's a compliment. Until one day you realize that those same words that were used to describe you were also the same words that were keeping you out of leadership conversations. If that's ever landed before, then this episode is for you. And if you think it might resonate with someone else, be sure to like and share and definitely subscribe. Welcome back to It's Time to Soar, Getting Unstuck with me, Coach Katina. This season is season 3, from Unstuck to Undeniable. And today we are talking about something that a lot of high performers wrestle with quietly. And it's what happens when being agreeable or adaptable and easy to work with starts costing you influence, authority, and growth. Because here's the truth. Being likable is not the same as being seen as a leader. It's a problem is when people start expecting that from you and it becomes your brand. It's good to have that as a characteristic, but if it's your brand, when you're always accommodating, then it softens your opinion. You choose harmony over clarity. Have you ever known somebody and they just are always agreeing and you're like, no, don't agree with me. I really want to have this dialogue. I really want to come up with the best solution. Talk to me. What are your opinions about it? Like if you're always kind of letting things slide just to keep the peace, then slowly, without realizing it, people stop seeing you as a leader and they start seeing you as a buffer. Right? You're the blanket, you're the soft, you're the soft side. Like you become reliable, you become pleasant and safe, but not decisive, not directive, and definitely not next in line for leadership, unfortunately. And that's how the likability tax creeps in. And it costs you a lot more than you might think it costs you, the likability tax. And it seems like this is something that I came up with on my own. And hear me out. I'm likable and I'm kind. And I might have struggled with this in certain rooms. It wasn't universal for me, but there were times when I realized that I was kind of doing that in certain teams, on certain around certain personalities. And I often give the DISC personality assessment. So I now understand the dynamics between different personalities, but there were some rooms where it was easier to kind of take the role of being likable, like the likability tax. And I didn't realize it was costing me anything. How many of you out there can say that either one, it's me, I think I struggle with being likable and just kind of accommodating, letting things go. Or maybe, like me, you were kind of situational likable. I'm always likable, but like there were times when I realized that I was maybe over accommodating just to keep the peace. So it's not something I made up. There's a study, an actual article. It's not a study, in Harvard Business Review, and it's entitled "Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office." And there are some other studies that are similar, and it's about leaders. And it was that people who are perceived as highly agreeable are often rated as less leadership ready. I know, I don't even want to say that, but yeah, even when like their competence and their work performance was equal to their peers, those that were perceived as highly agreeable were rated less leadership ready. Sit with that for a minute. The same traits that make you pleasant to work with can quietly signal that you are not going to challenge, push, or lead. And that's the likability tax. And the tax is subtle. No one tells you directly we didn't promote you because you're too easygoing. Like, who's going to say that? And they don't always say, we skipped you because you didn't push back. Uh, they just don't see you as someone that would lead through discomfort. And right now, organizations are going through change. Organizations are going through lots of mergers. I know in my experience in the pharmaceutical industry, listen, it was like there was Velcro on my office door, or my, the jackets that you get with the company logo. We were getting new ones like every other year because there were mergers, there were acquisitions, there were changes within the organization. And I sat on a lot of the boards where we were trying to integrate, and there are processes and policies and procedures from both organizations. And it's important for you to not just agree to go along and keep the peace. It's about making sure that your voice is heard, the opinion, the risks, the potential challenges are voiced. And so think about that from the flip side. If someone is hiring a leader and there are changes on the horizon or changes that your organization is going through, would you think that adapting an agreeable and keeping the peace just to get along kind of approach would make leaders confident that you would be the one to move them through this tumultuous period? Listen, it's not that you can't do it or that you're not capable. They just don't see you as someone that will lead through change or discomfort. So you stay right where you are. Again, not because you're incompetent or incapable, but because you're too convenient to keep right where you are. I will agree that that's tough to hear, especially for those of us who might feel like that's our natural personality, or that it is, but or that it's our natural personality, or that you've really worked hard to be this agreeable person. But I want to challenge part of that because I've watched it play out in real life, and it's not always as cut and dry as it is. And so I worked with someone who everyone liked her, on the 360 reviews, glowing reviews about how easy she is to work with. I want her on my team. She did the work. So her work ethic was strong. She was smart. She was always prepared, thoughtful. And the challenge was every time she would voice her opinion, she'd preface it with an apology, like, I could be wrong, but this might not matter, or you probably already thought about this. Have you ever done that? Have you ever or heard somebody do that? That every time they go to voice their opinion, they say, this probably doesn't matter, and then they give this great idea, but they kind of they haul, they really shrink right before your eyes. And over time, people respected her. They enjoyed working with her, but they didn't follow her. Like, she never really put a stake in the ground, or never really, kind of said, this is how I'm feeling. Let's go this way. Let's move this way, and have a really strong opinion. And so people didn't really follow her, not because she lacked the ability. She was great. We did all the assessments. We looked at her reviews. We looked at her work. Her work ethic was strong. It was not about her being incapable or having a lack of ability. It was because she had unintentionally trained everyone around her to experience her as agreeable and not authoritative. And you can't feel like it's inconvenient for you to speak up about your opinion, especially if you were going to lead. And so that's when it matters. People don't promote who they like, they promote who they trust to lead. So let's talk about the conundrum, because in our coaching sessions, we talked about how did you get here? because like I said, she would step up and voice her opinions occasionally. So it wasn't like it was her natural style or that it was her go-to. We found out that she had actually learned that behavior, right? So what happened was, as and I am an imposter syndrome coach, so we started to uncover where this behavior came from. And what we found was her elders raised her, not that women don't work, but you get a good job and you don't make waves. Don't give the people, the man, the boss, any reason to fire you or to let you go. And so in her mind, even though she had lots of opinions and some innovative ideas, we uncovered later, she had just grown to feel like voicing them or being in opposition to maybe an opinion that seemed to be the predominant one around the table would have her to be perceived as difficult or labeled as someone that you can't really work with. So instead, she just adopted that and was just grateful to have a job. Yeah, let me let that sit with you for a minute. She was grateful to have a good job. She was trained well. She was trained into a box. And remember some of the things that we've talked about before. When you are doing the work and you're just kind of going along, are you engaged? Are you as engaged if you kind of put yourself in a box? And you do great work, but you're not looked to as someone that can lead. And so everything in her, we found out, was leadership material. She had great ideas, great strategy, great insight, but she had trained herself and others to keep her and her opinions in the box. So how many of you out there might have that challenge, that you maybe came through generations where they taught you to just kind of stay in your place, keep your head down, and just be grateful that you have a job? I remember hearing that, but it didn't stick for me. I would rather risk getting in trouble or being considered the troublemaker if an opinion burned in my belly too long. I didn't do very well with just getting along to keep the peace. But I did say that there were groups where I did adopt that behavior. And that was when I had to address my own challenges with the imposter syndrome, challenges with, why didn't I speak up in certain groups? Why didn't I share? Why did I just go along to keep the peace? Some of it had to do with the culture of the organization where I worked, but a lot of it had to do with how I allowed that culture to seep in, and I was hit by the likability tax. And so when I really started to show my opinion, they're like, who is this? Long story short, I learned how to have that delicate balance, to understand when decisions needed to be made and we needed to move forward. But I learned how to present my ideas and opinions, regardless of whether in the back of my mind, I felt like I was disturbing the peace and being a disruptor. And a lot of my ideas became innovative ideas that pivoted our group and got great results. So how do you shift? This is the reframe that you have to kind of sit with. Leadership is not about being difficult, but it does require for you to have a tolerance for discomfort. So can you stand the pain or the discomfort of pushing when everything in you says, just lay low? You can't lead change, drive strategy, or shape culture while you're always prioritizing everyone's comfort over clarity. Being easy to work with should never mean that you are easy to override. It should never mean that you are easy to ignore. And it's definitely not meant for you to be easy to keep small, because the ideas inside of you are probably really big. The strategy and the experience that you bring to a table are probably pretty big. So you should never allow being agreeable or nice to work with to outweigh and allow people to keep you small. Because when people assume that you'll always adjust, that you'll always yield and always soften, then they stop associating with you with strength. That's a nice way to say that they may look at you and consider some weakness. I don't want that to hurt your feelings, but what I don't want is for you to continue to allow them to view you in a way that's inconsistent with who you are. Strength doesn't have to be harsh, but it does have to be clear. So you're not being difficult by holding your ground. You're being directional. Can you type that? If you're just listening, say that out loud in your car or wherever you're listening from. When I'm holding my ground, I am not being difficult. I am being directional. Say that to yourself, because that's the shift. How did it feel? How did it feel to say that? Did it feel odd? Did it feel awkward? Or are you ready to really start to let your voice be heard and to deny that likability tax and get where you're supposed to be, right? So how do you make this shift without becoming someone that you're not? So you start, and I am big on small starts, small movements over time create habits and they become more natural to you. So just practice. One, state your point without cushioning it. No cushion. No more, I might be wrong, or this might be out of line or out of order, or all of the things that you said in the past, and get you an accountability partner. Let somebody help you. Say, listen, I realize about myself that when I get in meetings or when I have an idea, I preface it with a limiting statement, like I might be wrong, or this could just be me. Like, state your point without the cushion, practice it, and get someone that may be in the meeting with you or is able to observe you to tell you when you're doing it, to tell you when you're doing it again. Second, hold eye contact when you're in disagreement. And that is tough, I know, but practice it. Get you a partner, role play, practice doing it. Practice, hold eye contact in disagreement. You do not have to shrink. This one might be tough, but let silence sit. Just like that moment right there. Let silence sit. Don't rush to make everyone comfortable. That is not your job. That is not your role. That is not your responsibility. You are here to bring clarity, not consensus. This is what I think. This is what I see. This is my opinion. It doesn't have to bring consensus. You just need to be clear, because clarity brings respect, not just compliance. People begin to respect and view you differently. And remember, your talent got you in the room, but positioning decides what happens next. So it's important that you position yourself practically. Position yourself in a way that brings clarity and creates respect. If this episode kind of touched on something that was uncomfortable, that's not a problem. That's awareness. And awareness can be your turning point. This is the work that I do, helping high performers shift from agreeable to influential without losing their authenticity. If this resonated with you, I want you to share it. I want you to like it, and definitely subscribe to the channel so that the next time we talk, you won't miss it. And our next episode, we're talking about why your title isn't the problem, your voice is. This episode you'll definitely want to catch. You'll find ways to connect with me in the description when the time is right. I'm excited for what can be for you. Hey you, I was thinking about you. And you know what I was thinking? I'm thinking it's time for you to soar.